Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to AfriCAN Do episode 8. Today, we venture into the world of design, and it's my great pleasure to have a good friend, Eugene Ngugi, Managing Director of Planning Interiors Ltd, one of the top interior design firms. Interior design and a lot more nowadays, but evolved from interior design in Kenya and does a lot of work regionally and hopefully into the future on the continent. So Eugene, welcome to AfriCAN Do podcast.
Thank you.
Where we tell stories of Africans doing. So welcome, and please introduce yourself to.
Yes, thanks, Leonard. As he said, my name is Eugene Ngugi. I run a business called Planning Interiors Ltd. I turned 60 a couple of days ago. So this was also pause for me to reflect on my career. I've been in the industry for over 33, 34 years now.
Yeah.
So from humble beginnings, we've come very far, and it's so interesting to see how the profession is evolving, moving forward. So I'm in a place now of reevaluating my contribution to this industry. I am a businessman running Planning Interiors, but I am a designer first and foremost.
Okay, excellent. Yeah. So Eugene, generationally, you said you have turned 60.
Yes.
And design is not really mainstream, at the time. Yeah.
Yes.
So maybe we can just delve back to the beginning. Yeah.
Yes.
Post high school. I know you're a student of University of Nairobi. So maybe you can tell us about your early days. What drew you to design? And then when you did design, what specifically led you to interiors? Because there are various facets of design that you can engage in, but you settled on the interiors aspect. So maybe you can walk us through that journey.
Yes. I think just something else I learned is that, your destiny is something you may not see early on.
Yeah.
From when I was very young, I was very artistic. I liked drawing and coloring. I liked music. I liked art. And even in primary school, which was quite uncommon, I dabbled in fashion design. So moving into high school, the only professions I had heard of that had anything design related, apart from graphic design, was architecture. Interior design wasn't even a word I was familiar with in high school. So I did everything I could. I did technical drawing at secondary school level. I did art at high school level, all preparing myself to become this architect I thought I was going to be.
Yeah.
And then when I go to campus, I didn't get enough points to get into architecture, so I end up having to do design.
Yes.
But between high school and university, those days the break was like 16 months. I worked for an architect's firm.
Yes.
So I did design in campus, and the design degree, as it was that time, covered all aspects of design and art and drawing. So it was a bit of a broad spectrum of artistic pursuits. So when I left college, I got a job with a company called Communication Graphics that had a graphic design and an interior design department.
Okay.
Now, because of my background, having worked for an architect's firm and my ability to do technical drawings, that's how I ended up in the interior design department.
Okay.
Yes, by default. And somehow, once I started doing interior design, I discovered I had come home.
Yes, that was always, you found your place.
Yes, I was always, even though I was headed in another direction, I just, and I believe that is divine.
Yeah.
I ended up where I was supposed to be.
Despite the fact that it was not as clear at the beginning where you were going. Yeah?
No.
For you had seen architecture as the way.
Yes, I'd even got a placement at a very prestigious school in London called AA School of Architecture.
Yeah.
But my dad, at the very last minute, couldn't afford to send me, and he was not a guy of fundraising. So
yes,
I had to give up that dream.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, but I think it's worked out pretty well. So
yes,
you've been in this design space, and you said you started with a firm that had a graphic design arm and an interior design arm. But you then end up in planning. Yeah, and planning systems.
Yes.
Was an architecture firm.
Yes.
So at how long were you in the first firm, and how did you transition now into planning.
Okay. So what happened with communication graphics, after a few months, the principal of that firm felt he'd rather focus on interior design. So he closed down the graphic design department, and I stayed on with the interior design department, and I worked there for about 5 years. Now, Planning Systems had set up an interior design department. They'd hired a couple of expatriates from the UK, and they were looking for a local designer to complement the team. So that's how I got into planning interiors. That was in 1992.
Okay.
So that time, the demand for interior design services was growing. So we grew from a team of, say, 3 people to about 7 or 8 within the space of about 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
In 1995, the partners at Planning Systems decided not to renew the contracts of my expatriate interior design bosses.
Yeah.
And they promoted me to MD of Planning Interiors.
Okay.
And from then on, I was running Planning Interiors.
Yeah, now, and that brings me to a very interesting facet of your career, because there's something in business school that we study called management buyouts.
Yes.
And it's where the management team of a company buy out that company and turn it into an independent company with them as the shareholders.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, either on the African continent or in Kenya, we read about these things theoretically in books, and we don't have examples. But when I met you all those years ago, I was pleasantly surprised that you are, I think, one of, at least for me, one of the few people I know in the market who have done a management buyout, because planning interiors is now your business. And how did that come to pass?
What happened is, around the year 2002, the partners at Planning Systems felt they wanted to retire, just do projects they were interested in.
Yeah.
And since Planning Interiors, even though functionally speaking was just a department within Planning Systems, we basically were very self-sufficient. We had our own set of clientele. We had a reputation all our own. So they decided, instead of making a big deal out of it, they had tried to give it a valuation before. But the interesting thing is, because Planning Interiors didn't have any assets, the value was literally the people.
Okay.
So they said, okay, fine. You guys have helped build this brand with Eugene, you at the helm. So just take this brand and run with it.
Okay.
So we bought it out, myself and one of my fellow directors at the time, Fatima.
Yeah.
Almost like for a nominal amount of 100 shillings or something like that. But the idea being that we take the brand.
It's now yours.
Yes, and create a business out of it. So that's where the rubber really hit the road.
Okay.
Because when we were part of Planning Systems, I was just focusing on running the division.
Yes.
But here, as I had to start learning about taxes and employees and things like that. So I learned things the hard way.
Now your entrepreneurial journey began.
Yes.
You're a salary collecting MD, but now you became the owner of the business.
I became the owner of the business.
And when was this?
This was in 2003. From January 2003 is when we were hived off. We hived off as a separate company.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 2003. Before we get into the intricacies of entrepreneurship and its challenges,
yes,
maybe we can speak a bit about interior design.
Yes,
because I think even for me, understanding what interior design is a factor of my career in hospitality. But prior to that, you hear interior design and you think, okay, it's when I build my house, I'll call in someone to do interior design. But through my relationship with you, I've gotten to understand a lot more about what interior design. And interestingly enough, in episode 6, we had Dr. Joyce Gikunda of Linton's Beauty, and she spoke quite well about the impact of interior design and how she was pushed to onboard an architect with interior design skills, and they designed Linton Pharmacy, which was really an iconic location, and that formed the foundation of the brand they built. So maybe you can just tell us a bit about what interior design is, assuming you're speaking to a layman who may have heard the term but does not quite appreciate what goes into interior design.
Yeah, I usually keep it simple because I get that question a lot.
Yeah.
And most people are familiar with what an architect does.
Yes.
So I keep it this simple. An architect designs the building. We are concerned with what's inside it.
Okay.
So that helps people understand it a bit better. Most people think when they hear interior design, they think, oh, now when I get money and get my house,
yes,
I'm going to
I'll
call you
yes.
to come and help me select the curtains and what have you. Now, that is actually interior decoration, not interior design. Interior design as a profession has evolved into a very technical profession, especially with in corporate settings where the advent of health and safety, security, data. So you find sophisticated interior design projects like what has been done locally for Google, Microsoft, Rockefeller Foundation are very sophisticated projects. Yeah. So even though when you think of interior design, or where you have people thinking of taking their sons and daughters to do interior design abroad, it's having a creative or artistic ability is a good thing, and an interest in all things interior is. But the reality of interior design projects is much more about project management, team coordination, because at the end of the day, you are delivering a project.
Yes.
There's an interior design component if you look at the look and feel, but there's a lot of it that is technical. Our motto at Planning Interiors is good design is good for business. Because we've been to our share of restaurants or hotels where it's evident money has been spent.
Yes.
But it's been spent very poorly.
True.
So the gap there was the good design.
Yeah.
So for us, when we design for our clients, be it a corporate office, be it a hotel, be it a restaurant, not only must it look and feel pleasant and inviting, but it must also work well. You know, if it's a restaurant with a kitchen, it must be laid out properly. An interior designer is more often than not the conductor of an orchestra.
Yes.
Because you're dealing with other consultants. Maybe there's a hospitality consultant, a kitchen consultant. You're also dealing with the contractors, the plumber, the electrician, and what have you. So interior design over the years has evolved into a very sophisticated profession, especially with the larger projects like hotels, like you were talking about now.
And I like where you have taken this, because some of the conversations we have had that I enjoy is when you understand the power of good design. You know, we've talked with you about a building that is facing the sun directly, and how the way the heat from the sunlight hits the glass and warms the building affects the running costs, because you're running air conditioning system. So I think that's what you refer to when you mean the complexity of what goes into it.
Yes, and also with the advent of ESG and sustainability, people are beginning to take cognizance of some of these things when they're being designed.
Yes.
There's a return to, and also it was precipitated by COVID, a preference for setting up a building where the ventilation is natural.
Yes.
Where natural resources are recycled and things like that. So you have certifications like EDGE, LEED, and more corporates are embracing some of those practices, so that when the establishment is done, be it a hotel, be it an office, not only does it look good, but the materials are durable, the sources of wood are sustainable.
Yes.
So this whole thing of responsible development, precipitated by the need to conserve the environment, is basically also producing a value proposition that is medium to long term. So it's not just about us designing a nice space, finishing it up, handing you over the key.
Yeah.
But in 3 to 5 years, is it going to be energy efficient? Are the materials going to be durable? Are the ergonomics done well? Is access universal for all sorts of people? So what is happening is it's evolving to be more of a, I don't know whether to call it, it's human-centered design.
Yes.
That's where I think of it.
Okay.
So from when someone enters a space, what they see, what they feel, what they smell, what they interact with, the heights at which they sit, the quality of the seat, everything must contribute to health and well-being of people. And what we're seeing, that is becoming increasingly important across the board.
Yeah.
Whether it's an office, a hotel, a restaurant, even when it comes to healthcare now, we were involved in the interior design for Chiromo Lane Medical Center.
Yes.
And you see now with the advent of mental health, it's becoming increasingly important to look at even the paint colors you paint a room.
Yes.
Is that going to lift the mood of a depressed person, for example? If the materials, are they easy to clean? Are you able to maintain disinfectant quality cleanliness in some of these spaces? So what we're finding is that, interior design, it's almost like the aesthetic component is becoming a smaller and smaller part of the total delivery of the project.
So have you found that because when you sit down and explain it, it's very clear on why your services are needed, right? But in a market that knows, for example, an architect, and it's basic, the architect builds, and like you say, there's misrepresentation. People think interior design is interior decoration, so I'll call someone, pick curtains and carpets and we're fine. But design is a lot more than that. So that struggle, have you found yourself of having to play both? As you're an entrepreneur in design, you're also having to be a bit of a teacher? Is that a fair comment?
Absolutely. I mean, all along from when I started in this profession in the late 80s, because in the first decade of my work in this profession, most of the interior design was being done by architects because people did not have put a name to the professional they need to deal with the interiors. Those days, for example, there were just one or two firms that specialized in hospitality, and they did the architecture and interior design. Even the interior design was being done by architects.
Okay.
So for us, this is a profession that has evolved over the last few decades. I think also people have traveled more, gone and seen nice spaces, and come back and discover, if you want your restaurant done up really nicely, the person to look for actually is an interior designer, not an architect. So awareness of this profession has grown over the years, but even now in this day and age, we still have to educate people and differentiate ourselves from interior decorators. Their lanes, we are more commercial interior designers. So the education process continues. What has also helped raise the standards and awareness is also, it's a bit of a double-edged sword for us business-wise, is a lot of the more sophisticated projects, especially the hotel chains, the design is done by international interior designers. But they bring a new standard as well that local businesses are rising to, which is an encouraging thing to see. So fewer and fewer people are going straight to contractors, and more people are realizing if my project is going to be viable as a business, if it's an office and I want to attract the best and the brightest, I am going to have to get a designer to do it. So like the value add Dr. Gikunda was talking about is something more and more people are becoming aware of. And also with the advent of technology now, access to certain websites like Pinterest and others where there's almost like an increase in the use of DIY tools. So people have more access to good design online. So they have an appreciation of what they would like to see. But also realizing that they may not be the experts. Maybe they do one project and it goes horribly wrong. Like when we did Java, we worked with Java for about 6 or 7 years. They did the first 5 branches themselves, and they did a reasonably good job themselves. But when they got to project number 6 and they were growing the business, they said, okay, now it's time for us to work with experts, to help build and consolidate this brand. So that was an interesting experience for ourselves as well.
You sound like you're the ultimate... you're in the space where, if I dare say, the moniker cheap is expensive applies to your industry very well, in the sense that you may think that you're saving money by not using this service. But the reality is you could make a lot more money and probably even save more in the long term. Because when I think about kitchen design, which like you said, kitchen designers, a well-designed kitchen could be the difference between a staffing of 2 people versus 5 or 6. Yeah. And so because salaries are a recurring cost in any business, when you do have a well-designed kitchen, you can run it excellently with 2 people versus a poorly designed kitchen, which the investor may not know is poorly designed.
Yes,
because he's bought expensive equipment, but he's wondering, why isn't my restaurant making money? And it's because of the running costs. So you do sit squarely in that space where people may scratch their heads at the fees that you're charging, but the value, your value is longer term. That would be, I think.
No, it is. And part of the education is helping people appreciate the business value of spending that little bit extra on a good designer. I think it's also because this industry here is relatively young. It's not like in the West where interior design is such an established profession. People know not to do certain projects without the right professionals on board. Here, we are also evolving from a culture where, like in the 90s, for example, there was also a lot of corruption in the construction industry. So you'd find that the criteria for getting a plum job, we got lost a lot of work because we were not willing to compromise on our standards, or So what I think happened in the 2000s is people started doing business correctly. Then that's when now things started improving for us, because people started looking for the best professional as opposed to the cheapest professional, especially in corporate settings. The other thing we found as well is, as corporate governance levels continue to rise, that also helps mitigate cronyism and nepotism, and more organizations are going through elaborate processes to get the best consultant. I was even contacted the other day by a company that wants to hire designers to do retail design for a chain of pharmaceutical outlets, and maybe they listen to Gikunda's interview. And I was called, they wanted to consult and hire me to help them evaluate the designers they were using. And when I sent them a bit of a write-up in terms of what advice I could give them to help guide the process, I realized all these years I've done pitching and what I actually have a lot to bring to the table when it comes to helping and guiding other designers. But for me, that was a first. I was called up. Oh yes, we've heard about you. You've experienced in the industry. You're probably better placed to help us pick the right designer than we are. So to me, that is progress.
Oh wow!
That is
because there's an appreciation now of the skill set and the value of the knowledge.
Yes, there is. Because you see now, a lot of designers are coming onto the market, and it's getting harder and harder for people to really tell who's a good designer and who's not. Everyone can do a fascinating Pinterest page. Everyone can use AI-generated tools to do really impressive 3-dimensional, images. But at the end of the day, it's about delivering the project.
True.
That's where the differentiation comes. So what people are beginning to realize is there seems to be, even when we look at the evaluation process when we're pitching for work, the amount of information we're required to provide now vis-a-vis, say, 20 years ago, where we just send a 2-page fee proposal, take it or leave it, tells you about how much more seriously this is being taken now, getting the right profession. So I think there's been a lot of progress. There's been a lot of progress in that front.
Yeah, so you mentioned Java earlier on, and one of the things that I find with your profession is one of the challenges of selling your services, is you are invisible, to the end consumer. In the sense that people go to Java every day, but there's no immediate, unless they get to meet you, talk to you, or know someone who knows you, don't know that this iconic restaurant brand in the Kenyan market that transformed the way we consume coffee, you were involved in the early stage in bringing some formality, because you said you started working with them at branch 6. That was very early in the game. But that notwithstanding, even I know you do a lot of commercial and executive offices. Very few people get to know that this lovely office for Bank X or Bank Y is your work. So how do you overcome that? Because you are one, you have acknowledged that you're teaching the market about the value of design, but you can't force the customer or the client to say, hey, make sure you say that, I designed this office. So how do you go around selling a business of that nature?
Yeah, and it's been a challenge for me because, that's a business aspect I must confess, I've not been as good at.
Yes.
Because now the game is also a lot more about how you market yourself than before.
Yes.
So there is the traditional mode of networking, playing golf and things like that. But what's becoming increasingly important is social media presence, how you write articles on LinkedIn, your Instagram pages and things like that to create awareness. So that is something we have had to, in our business development department, strengthen our capacity to do.
Yes.
Because I find also, for me, even today, after all these years of running a business, I'm still a designer at heart.
Yes.
I'm still an introvert at heart. So a lot of these hobnobbing markets, they do not come naturally to me at all. I mean, you've known me for many years.
Yes.
And I always, shy behind it. But I believe that this is more of a business challenge. And to rise to it, you have to look at what the market needs, stay sensitive to what is required. I mean, I read books, I speak to other marketers, I speak to people like yourself.
Yeah.
In order to get a feel for what can be done moving into the future.
Yeah.
So even with my business now, I am trying to work myself out of a job very seriously, because my role needs to move more towards mentoring, providing guidance and support. And for PIL to survive into the future, I'm very determined that the business does not end with me.
Yes.
Because a lot of consultants, architects, QSs, they run their businesses. The businesses have made money for them, but they've not grown it beyond themselves and a few employees. I really feel that PIL as a brand has outgrown me, and I need to do what is required to build it beyond me. So I'm spending a lot of time focusing on what the future looks like and where PIL fits in, and trying to build a team that is able to take PIL into the future. And so those are some of the lessons I've learned. There's a certain set of business skills you require. Design, technical skills is one thing, but that's just not enough to run PIL as a business. You need good financial skills, good IT skills, good marketing skills.
Project management.
Yeah, project management is central and key. I think also in the consulting space, people are moving more towards strategic partnerships than building the firm organically.
Okay.
Because there's a time in 2014, we had grown to about 38 staff. Now we are less than half that.
Okay.
And no matter how successful we get in terms of getting projects, I've realized that it's better to remain lean.
Yes.
Because that is the way of the future, actually. With the advent of the internet, international access, you can work just as easily with a designer from South Africa. You can get someone from India to do the technical drawings. You can subcontract the project management, because as the projects become more sophisticated, it's interesting with competition. It's quite ironic that the average project we run today, we earn 30 to 40% less in fees than we did 10 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yes. The fees. So consulting on its own is becoming...
It cannot be...
Yes.
It'll become less and less sustainable as the years go by.
Yes. So you have to evolve your model.
Yes.
You have to evolve your model.
Okay.
And people have more choices now. If you have a sophisticated hotel, you are not limited to local designers.
Yes.
Everyone is just a phone call or an email away.
Yeah.
If you want a designer from Brazil, maybe you've seen and liked the designer's work on Instagram or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone can do work anywhere. Yeah.
But Eugene, isn't there a case for local context, in the sense that you and I were talking the other day about a hotel, yeah? And one of the new hotels that has opened up in Nairobi. And when you walk into the lobby, it has a quote-unquote African theme.
Yeah.
But the designer in you immediately commented that it's clearly not done by an African or anyone who has a passion for Africa.
Yeah.
And that I think is where I lean more towards. Yes, we can source the services from anywhere, but there's important for local context, because it's a hotel in the heart of East Africa, but a lot of West African art has been used. But clearly, the person who used the African mask to do the interior decoration, did not bother to do the groundwork or put in the effort. So I think there's a case for local context.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, there are at least 3 or 4 projects we've done in the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
Where there's an international designer, and they have engaged us just to handle that segment of it. So we have a department that does signage, branding, artworks, and accessories.
Yes.
Run by a very experienced artist who's been with us for 10 or 15 years. And we're able to provide a service. If you have an office, if you have a hotel, we can sit down with you and you say, okay, fine, you want young and upcoming artists.
Yes.
We're in touch with all the local galleries. We have relationships with some of these collectives. So we can put something that is genuinely Kenyan in terms of artworks and accessories.
Yes.
And we're finding for us, it's just for us to market that special ability.
Nice.
So what we're finding is also the scope of services we provide. Like now we've done work for a couple of corporates where an international designer has been engaged to do the offices for this corporate in a number of countries.
Yes.
So we come in and they say, look, we can do the design from our office in London, but we need someone on the ground with experience dealing with the local contractors and what have you, to be able to implement it. So that's another thing we've started. So some of our clients now are international designers and architects who have been appointed to do projects in the region, and looking at having a partner on the ground to do it. So it's interesting for us also, we need to present ourselves as people they can trust with our design, because, some of them are wary, these guys will go and start marketing this work as their own and things like that. So the other thing, one of our core values is integrity. So we believe that if you're engaging us to represent you here, you can trust us to give you credit where it's due. You can trust us to ensure that whatever you've designed is executed to the standard you require. So what we're finding is that as we sit and brainstorm, it's almost like there are new specialist offerings that we can bring to the table. So it's almost like, and if you can't beat it, then join them. International interior designers are here to stay. International hotel chains, as you know.
Agreed.
Yeah, they have their own designers.
Niche, yeah.
Yes, and there are business reasons for doing it that way.
Okay.
So we've just found a way to work with them instead of fighting against them.
So 2 things I'd like us to touch on. One, based on what you're just speaking about, your relationship with international designers.
Yeah.
You think you have then played a role, in debunking myths and changing minds about the caliber of talent and expertise that exists on the African continent?
Yes, we have in our own small ways. I mean, there are 2 large corporates we did work for in the last 3 or 4 years where, for them, international corporates, for them as a policy, is when they go into a country, policy-wise, they look for the local talent.
Okay.
And only revert to the international designers if they don't find somebody suitable. And in those 2 or 3 cases, we did work for international corporates that would ordinarily have done the work with reputable international designers.
Yeah.
And that has been good for our portfolio. It has also helped benchmark.
Yes.
And we say we've done work for this organization, that organization, because we also have local organizations seeking to, up their game when it comes to interiors and things like that. Because even in Kenya, we have large corporates that are expanding into the region.
True.
So finding that they want to work with partners who are able to do work locally.
Okay.
So local context, but there's a global approach. Even right now, we're doing work for a Pan-African bank.
Yes.
And in the pitch process, we actually beat out a firm from South Africa and a firm from UK.
Wow.
Because they said, we want to work ideally with a firm that has African roots, understands African culture and service, and is able to do it. So for them, it's a corporate policy they have
to
promote Africa, even when it comes to working with the consultants, as it were. So some of those have helped support us when it comes to.
So as you
getting work.
speak, and just connecting the dots to, we mentioned Dr. Joyce Gikunda earlier in Linton's Beauty World.
Yes.
As you speak, I can't help but connect the dots to the future of enterprise like yours, being related to or becoming more robust with the growth of African brands. You know, the more we aspire to build local brands with strong local context, but executed to an international standard, the more I see roles for your farms like yourself and any other farms that are related to that interior design space or even the architecture space. When we build our brands, you know, if we have, like you mentioned, banks, so local banks becoming regional banks, then they take that service there. So do you see yourself related to the growth of local brands?
Yes. And we've been involved in it. In fact, what we find with some of the potential clients we've been talking to, they're very interested in looking at some of the clients with whom we've gone the journey with.
Okay.
You know, we've had some clients we've been with for over 20 years.
Yes.
That now regional powerhouses and started small. Okay. So we're saying, you know, what we're saying is we can come alongside you as business partners on your journey. If you embrace the motto that good design is good for business, and your business has a retail component, there are various aspects of human interaction that interior design can help enhance and strengthen your brand. Because brand, you know, as you know, has become increasingly important and will continue to grow to be so. So for us, we also brand implementation specialists as well.
Yeah.
So you know, we work with branding agencies a lot on projects. So we come in as almost like a crucial cog in the development, in the expansion, in the entrenchment of a brand in the region.
So we'll encourage our listeners who are out there, if you see maybe a local or international brand that wants to leave the country and you have the capability to acquire them or to participate in the acquisition so that you can build or spin off a local brand out of that, I think that's something that would lend itself very well to work that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things I'm also looking at now is curating case studies of clients we worked with over a number of years, seeing how they've grown. And it's quite evident the impact good design has had on their business. You know, if it's a bank, we're talking about branches. If it's a restaurant, we're talking about outlets. So we've been part of those journeys.
Yes.
And when we're looking at how to reposition ourselves into the future, we're coming in and saying, look, let's take a more business-like business growth approach.
Okay.
And here we are the right people to partner with, because the challenge you're also having now, there are lots of new firms coming up, but you'll be hard-pressed to get a firm that has the length and breadth of experience we have.
That you do.
So the challenge for us now, moving into the future, is how to package this experience, expertise, and knowledge of the local and regional market to provide a unique value proposition to a new set of clients who are looking to grow and expand into the region.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now let's go back into we started this conversation by speaking about how you transitioned from an employee into a business owner. Yeah. But you're in a unique space in the sense that you sell knowledge. Like the owners of or the partners at Planning Systems told you when you wanted to acquire their business. They said, listen, the talent is the people. Yeah. And you've walked this journey for over 20 years now with Planning Interiors. Let's speak a bit about a topic that we talk about a lot with you, which is capitalization of businesses that don't really acquire assets. You know, so you are dealing in talent. Your core value is your ability to develop talent, retain it, and then use that talent effectively to execute the projects that you get. So how on the funding side of that, because you're not getting money to buy an office. You're getting money so that you can sustainably pay your salaries and your other operating expenses to execute the projects. And I know that's been quite a journey.
Yeah, and it continues to be a challenge because the disconnect is basically we execute projects and payment is milestone based.
Yes.
But your cash flow systems are monthly because you have rent and salaries to pay monthly. So it's always a juggling act, a difficult juggling act. And what we're finding is that we need to restructure the way we are paid to enable us to manage those overheads. Because you see, for banks here, they're always looking for collateral. But since you are a consulting firm, you really don't have collateral to speak of. And sometimes you just want money to pay. You've got a project that's running 4 or 5 months. Maybe it's a client who hasn't even set up their systems in the country. So they've signed a contract with you. Maybe they've agreed to pay a premium because they're not paying in advance. So you'd expect to be able to go with this contract with a reputable organization to the bank and say, look, I'm almost guaranteed the payment here. Can I have a temporary facility, at least to cover my costs as I do it?
Yes.
You'll be amazed at how difficult to impossible. And this is when you're working for clients and banks, who you're doing the work for, and you're saying, look, we're working for you. We have a contract with you. And we signed your contract, which stipulates we can only get paid once a budget is established and is approved. So we're doing a whole lot of work
before.
Surely you can come and say, look, you yourselves can guarantee this because the work is being done for you. And there's no space for that. They say, look, I'm sorry.
So would you say, from your experience over 20 years, that there's a scope for the Kenyan financial services sector
absolutely
to deeper understand businesses that are structured around intellectual talent like your own, so that they can develop tools that serve you better in terms of financing your operations? Because the fact that you've been in business for 20 odd years speaks to the value that you owe for the market and the brands that you mentioned. But do you feel that there's either not a reluctance, but an ignorance and a failure to understand the way your business is run to be able to offer you financial products that would be beneficial to you?
Yeah, I think especially the larger corporate banking entities, it's almost like a problem they don't want to bother with. And I think of this as such a double standard because with the recent years, there's been the advent of the relationship manager. Because like us, we do work for banks. And with a lot of these banks, whenever you're doing work for them, they require you to open an account. Now, because they're interested in retaining you as a customer, so you don't just open the account when you're doing the work and you close it after. So they come and send you a relationship manager who can even come to your office and talk to you nicely and say we're your business partner. But to me, I've always found that as lip service. Because when push comes to shove,
and the rubber meets the road.
And you need to pay salaries, and for some reason or other, the project milestone has been delayed, and a lot of times it's at the behest of the client. They're not willing to listen. So it's something I've scratched my head, but it's also been a major inhibitor in the growth of consulting firms because of that challenge and that constraint.
I think many a younger consulting firm in the market will be surprised to hear you speak of challenges which they may feel are exclusive to them. You in your earlier days, you probably feel that this is going to be, this is year 1 to 5, I'm a young firm. But now to hear you talk about experiencing those challenges today speaks to, I think, the magnitude of the opportunity. I think a mind shift is required in the financial services in the market to recognize that how do we deal with business and learn how do we deal with business where the talent is the people.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely,
because the talent is not a thing. You're not going to buy a 2-acre plot in Runda and use it as security. Your talent is your people, and you have to continue attracting the best.
And retaining them.
And retaining them.
Because if you pay salaries late for 2 or 3 months in a row, people get jittery.
Start saying, hey, this thing, is it falling with me inside?
And it's not enough to say, look, we have these pro forma invoices. You guys work to get paid. At the end of the day, for your staff, it's not their problem.
Agreed.
They know they've come to work, they've worked, done an honest day work.
Agreed.
They should get paid. All those are management problems. because so those are some of the things we're also reviewing as we review our payment systems, and why that business remodeling is required, because even with the advent of competition, a lot of people are working from their homes. Many like for us, it's a bit odd that some of the large projects, the clients are very fussy about capacity.
Yes.
So you need a certain capacity to be eligible for some large corporates, because they've discovered, okay, you can get someone working from home with appropriate qualifications. By the end of the day, this is a project of a certain size
and scale,
and scale and financial investment on the part of the corporate. So you can't take, with these individuals. So for us, we're remodeling it and saying, now that needs to be costed into the project.
Yes.
And it's so interesting culturally. If you have a contractor or you're getting something fabricated, people don't have problem paying 50% deposit.
Yes.
But as a designer, you go and tell a client you want 50% up front. You'll be hard pressed to get a single person to agree. And the principle is the same. You're still investing time and resources.
Yeah.
So no one has a problem with a fundi coming and saying, look, please pay me 50% because I need to buy wood. I need to buy.
Yes.
We're saying, please pay us the deposit because we need to pay.
Of course. The people have started thinking your project through already. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that perception, I think, for us, because now the Architectural Association has set up an interior design chapter. We have an interior design association as well. Those are some of the things at the association level need to start being dealt and grappled with and start coming in with the requirements that even when you're pitching for work, because you put in a lot of work in order to achieve that job, that is work that should legitimately be paid for by the client.
And hopefully conversations like the one that we're having, hopefully there are some local or regional bankers listening and do acknowledge that this is a space and an opportunity, because I believe it is. As our hospitality industry grows, our retail sector grows, our commercial sectors continue to grow, our companies, Kenyan companies, evolve from local to regional, these services will be required and that they will evolve into more and better. So I think there's an opportunity there for any bank out there to think through products that genuinely, not lip service wise, because I think the lip service story in a Kenyan context is a big challenge.
It is.
That genuinely serve businesses like yours, and we can continue to see them thrive. Because if we could transition from thriving in spite of and start thriving because of, then we will really unlock the true potential that I think we have.
And now we can also be contributors to the success stories bankers cite.
Yes.
They talk about having supported the SME industry and what have you.
Agreed.
But maybe they look at it and say, the creative consulting industry is too small. But the government and certain public, or NGO organizations are beginning to appreciate the relevance of the creative economy.
Yes.
So what's also being looked at now is how do we grow these cottage industries? Because a lot of these creative, be it a dressmaker, fashion designer, someone who makes baskets and what have you, there's a huge opportunity here to bring together designers and craftspeople to start evolving new products.
Yeah.
But some of the biggest challenges you find is that a lot of these people don't have business skills. So they may have one batch done and it's sent out, but they don't know how to build and grow. Banks also need to be sensitive to the need to look at some of these business models and say, how can we provide financing and support to get some of these good ideas off the ground and have a situation where in 4 or 5 years, this is a thriving cottage industry that is exporting its product and what have you. Because I found South Africa through their design institute have something like that.
Okay.
Here we have the makings of some, but again, here the challenge we have is lip service.
Okay.
So for me, even as I try to transition into my next phase of life, I really want to become a voice where I can speak to something like that. The creative economy, saying that we are a viable and tangible contributor to the future of Kenya's economy. Because even when we look at the unemployment problem with the young people, I'm involved with an art gallery in called Art Gallery, just
Yes.
near Strathmore.
Yes.
And the proprietor of the art gallery really has a focus on supporting up and coming artists.
Yes.
And when I go there, it's incredible just to see how much creative talent there is amongst the Gen Zs and younger millennials, you know, and saying, you know, is there an opportunity to take all this talent and start to package it in such a way that people can start creating livelihoods and cottage businesses and put Kenya on the map as far as the creative economy is concerned. I know there's a lot being spoken about the creative economy at a high level, at the MasterCard Foundation level. There are one or two organizations that specialize in providing funding to creative cottage businesses, but a lot more needs to be done because for us, we've been employers for many years.
Yes.
So many of the designers in the industry have gone through planning interiors, been trained. So we've contributed to the current standard you're seeing here.
Yes.
But here, if after all these years we're still struggling to remain afloat, then you know something is amiss.
So you have brought in government and policy.
Yeah.
Do you feel that it would be beneficial? Yeah. Kenya is a colonial project that got independence. Yeah. Do you think it would be beneficial for the Kenya government, to have an overarching design standard? Or is that a conversation that you think would be worthy of having, such that when we go into public buildings, there's a certain theme or uniformity of feel, look and feel, and thus government is the biggest consumer in any market in terms of what they procure. But imagine if Huduma centers and the lobby where we go and collect our passports, wasn't just a drab old place, but had some design, because like you rightly say, design does influence, it comes or it inspires, or do you think that's a conversation that's worthy of having?
No, absolutely. And the interior design chapters and IDAC, that's Interior Design Association of Kenya, I believe they are the forefront of pushing that conversation. The government, the Ministry of Works, for decades just employed architects. They've started employing interior designers as well. So we have interior designers now working in government ministries, which means that recognition is beginning to happen.
It's starting to happen,
So there's a sense in which we are a bit late to the table, but I think it's better late than never.
Yes.
And that is going to start to happen. Because for the government, they're also realizing that they have all this office space that needs to start being used more efficiently. This business of enclosed offices, like if you go to a government office, that thing of there's a corridor, and there are all these doors, more and more government departments are realizing we have to go open plan. We have to have meeting rooms. We have to change the way we work to meet the future, and realizing that the people best equipped to design these spaces is interior designers. So there is some progress. I'm happy to report.
Nice.
The government is also at the forefront of supporting ESG and sustainability efforts. And they need to be able to set the example as well with their own spaces.
Okay.
So in my conversations with a couple of interior designers who've been employed by government, is apparently that's at the forefront of what they've been charged to do. They're getting trained in sustainability, design, and things like that. And I think working with the Green Building Society as well, they're also very active in working with government and government bodies. That also helps propel the industry, interior design industry, and its relevance to the broader community forward.
So Eugene, you've had a full spectrum career and you're in a reflective phase.
Yes, you can say that.
What excites you about what's happening on the African continent in your specific space, but also generally? Because you are dealing with corporates who are going regional, you're dealing with companies that were Nairobi-based mainly and have moved to multiple towns and continue to grow and hopefully grow. So what excites you about where we're headed? When looked at in the context of where we're coming from?
I think when it looks at the way design is going, I think the advent of the internet and globalization, it's a bit of a double-edged sword. From the sense that interior design has become more universally standard. There's a sense in which the more mundanely similar interiors are becoming, the more desire there is to do something unique and different. And Africa, still has a lot of culture and art and color that they can contribute to the quality of interior spaces. So I believe that moving into the future, people are going to look. People desire unique spaces.
Yes.
You know, when you look at a lot of the contemporary furniture now, there's nothing differentiating about it. You know, if it's a sit to stand desk, the mechanism is the same, but maybe what can differentiate it is maybe the wood top
Yes.
could have been, manufactured using a sustainable wood. So even with the advent of personalization, you see that in fashion, you see that interior decor. Again, accelerated by COVID, the need to introduce more homely features into working spaces. So it's like everything is being melded into lifestyle, as it were. So with that comes a desire for unique, eclectic things, and Africa has a lot to offer on that front. So there's an interesting project we're doing that is going to run across 7 or 8 African countries, East Africa, West Africa. And what we're really excited about is incorporating local creative, artistic components into each.
Excellent.
So the way we're designing the retail outlets for that organization is that 70 to 80% of it is going to be standard, but 20%, especially the aesthetic component, is going to be a local specific, which is incredible.
It's a big component.
Yes, it's a big component, and helps sustain and preserve our cultures into the future.
Nice.
Because you've seen some countries in West Africa, they're pushing to have certain valuable artifacts repatriated from the US and the UK. So also with our youth now that are more familiar with Western, culture, need to be reminded of what their past is, and interior environments are going to become a key component.
As you're speaking, I'm connecting some dots to, in our third episode, we had Leonard Mcharo, who we both know of Savo.
Yeah.
And one of the topics that we discussed, which I found very interesting, was how he used his architectural skills to bring dignity into living spaces for young Africans. So as you were speaking, that same thought about dignity through design is coming through in terms of that if you do see yourself culturally in a space from a design perspective, it does contribute to the dignity and the general good feeling about yourself for Africans. And I think that's something quite noble to aspire to.
No, absolutely. When we look at the generations now we are designing and catering for into the future, it's very different from us. Us, we grew up, we were educated in very conformist fashion.
Yes.
The schools we went to, the churches we went to. But now you're finding the younger generations will question things. They won't take things at face value.
Yes.
They have individual tastes and needs. So they want more variety to choose from. Us, we may do with very little. So in response to that, I think there's a sense in which individual uniqueness of product, depth of product, people are more interested in where this wood was made. If it's a fabric print, which country is it from? Is it representative of a certain cultural artifact or picture? So that aspect of sophistication, if you will, that was thought to be the preserve of the West, because we've always thought that these touristy things are the preserve of visitors from abroad.
Yeah.
Now you find outlets here locally are patronized just as much by the local corporates and as it is by the internationals. And I think that's incredible progress and very good for the interior designers as a profession.
Eugene, a fabulous conversation. I think as I reflect on what we've just discussed over the last hour, it speaks to my passion for design. And thank you very, very much for being a guest on our podcast and for enlightening us on the potential design has for Africa and Africans on the continent. Yes, and if you have any parting words now, you can share them with us before we bid farewell to our audience.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I turned 60 a couple of days ago, and something my wife said at my birthday, she prayed for me and said, may the coming decade be an year of impact for you.
Wow.
So for me, it's to take the 30 years I've been in this industry and what I've learned and say, how do I turn this around and give back to the generations that are coming up? So even though we look at the problems and challenges we have as a country, this is also a country that is full of opportunity and talent and intelligence. And I think sometimes it takes going to other countries in Africa that are not as developed as ours to appreciate that us, even with all our problems, if we just sort ourselves out, we can really create a future for the generations that come behind us. And I think for me, the most important component of this impact strategy I have is to play a small part in strengthening and giving hope to those future generations.
Excellent.
Using design.
Very well said.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us as we recorded episode 8 of AfriCAN Do podcast, a fabulous discussion with Eugene Ngugi of Planning Interiors, and we look forward to having you in the future. Please do subscribe to our channel on YouTube and Spotify. Thank you very much.